Passion, talent, development. NCAA hockey offers all that, and its players graduate at a 93% rate. Trevor Zegras.
And they score on the lacrosse move!
Jake Gensel.
Gensel banks it towards the goal, he scores!
Cale Makar.
Cale Makar, he scores!
Stars on campus before the NHL stage. Whether you're a fan or a player, nothing compares to college hockey.
My goodness gracious me!
Visit collegehockeyinc.com and follow at College Hockey.
Welcome to College Hockey Today Tournament Edition. He is Brad Schlossman. I am Jayson Hajdu. We're ready to talk a ton of college hockey today. We've got news to get into. We've got some coaching change to get into. And, of course, the NCAA tournament field is set. Schloss, thanks for joining us from the Sioux Falls Regional.
Yes.
Lovely Sheraton. How's the day looking for you? What do you have on the hopper today?
Yeah, they start practices and press conferences today at 11:30 a.m. So I will spend all afternoon over at the rink. The hotel here is actually attached to the rink, which is wonderful.
Nice.
Just stroll over there and check out how everyone's looking and see what everyone has to say, and file as many stories as I possibly can this afternoon. So it's always a busy time, but there's always plenty to write about, and that's no shortage here in the Sioux Falls Regional, and I'm sure elsewhere too. So yeah, it's a good field.
It's here.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll later on we'll go region by region and really go in depth, but I do want to get your general thoughts on the field. Everyone listening knows the field. I won't read off the matchups, but 45 combined national titles, 8 of the 10 Hobie finalists, more than 120 draft picks in the 4 regionals. That's the second most we have on record, going back about 13 years. Just your thoughts on I wouldn't say a very surprising field, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think it played out exactly like we talked about probably 2 months ago. Remember, it was January, and we were looking at who the 4 seeds were going to be, and we were like, oh, that is not an easy matchup at all. And now I see the bracket, and I don't see really any easy matchups. You know, the 116, we'll go through that in a sec, but the last seed is a team that won its league's regular season and playoff title. Mm-hmm. And so it's a great field, and it's going to be hard to predict. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that 16 seed is Bentley, one of only 2 teams in the field to win both of their banners. Minnesota State, the other. Like I said, we will get into that in depth here shortly. But some big non-tournament news this week. We talked last week about the departure of Bob Motzko at Minnesota. They didn't waste a whole lot of time bringing in his replacement, and his replacement is Brett Larson, from St. Cloud State. What was your reaction to that hire?
That makes sense. You know, I think he's really sharp. If you've ever talked hockey with him, you pick that up real quick. I think he sees the game really well. You know, what's interesting is he's different than Bob Motzko. So when Bob was at St. Cloud, he liked getting a lot of those smaller, super skilled players, right? Like I think of
Garrett Rowe. Yeah.
Garrett Rowe, Ryan Lash, those type of guys is exactly who I think of when I think of those really great, St. Cloud State teams that he had. And then Brett Larson came in, and he kind of turned St. Cloud more into what he had at Minnesota Duluth. Brett Larson was an assistant at Duluth. He has 2 national championship rings there. And when I started looking at the commit list, every guy that was committing was like 6'2". I'm like, there's another big guy. So he brought some more size and physicality to St. Cloud State than we saw under Motzko or over the years. And so it's a little bit different style of team build, I think. I think Minnesota is used to some of those really highly skilled players. I think they're going to get a little bit more size and physicality with Brett Larson than Gopher fans are used to seeing. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, I think that a lot of Gopher fans, the reaction on social media was like, this guy's had some losing seasons and missed the NCAA tournament. What are we doing? And I was like, they don't know Brett Larson very well, do they? Actually, there's no. Everyone knows St. Cloud State has some really challenging budget issues compared to some of the other teams in the NCHC. And I think he's done a great job there. Every time I look at the commits that he's bringing in, it's like, man, that's another really good class. Like this freshman class he brought in this year was really good. So to me, makes perfect sense. They're going to have good candidates. They had good candidates, and he's one of them. The other thing I thought that went through my mind was, part of it, when there's a lot of passion one way or the other about the coaching hire, it's a good thing. You want people who care about the program and are going to be passionate. But when people were kind of throwing the Brett Larson hire under the bus a little bit when it initially was announced, I thought, you know what? I remember this 1 year ago today. Remember, it wasn't all happy North Dakota fans that Dane Jackson got the job. I haven't heard a whole lot about that in the last 5 months now.
Oh, give it time.
North Dakota goes against the leagues, the number 2 overall seed. So big picture, as you know, I think Dane Jackson said when he got the job, you just win. And everyone will be happy, right? Like, so Brett Larson, if he goes to Minnesota and wins, the Gopher fans who did not like the hire are going to be real quiet. And if he doesn't, they're going to be loud. It's kind of the nature this day and age.
St. Cloud State now searching for a coach. As of today, it's the only team in Division I men's hockey with a coach vacancy, so we'll keep an eye on that between now and next week's show. Some more early signings. I'm sorry, Yale. Yale is an open search as well. Joe Howe was an interim. Yep. A string of early departures, and a lot of them from Hockey East. Until yesterday, Tuesday, Josh Kotai made some Augustana hockey history. He signed with the Islanders, and that makes him the first Viking ever to sign an NHL contract, and well-deserved for a guy with a save percentage north of .930 as a collegian.
Yeah, he's the real deal. He was outstanding. The reason why Augustana was a game away from making the NCAA tournament. If UConn beats Merrimack, Augustana gets that last spot in the tournament. So, he's just had an incredible career there, and well-deserved NHL contract for the Augustana Viking, and U.S. Collegiate Selects goaltender at the Spengler Cup as well. He got to play there, and just a truly impressive college career for a guy who, honestly, I didn't know a whole lot about him when Augustana brought him in, and boy, did he have a tremendous career. So great find by Garrett Raboyne and his staff at Augustana. And I guess we could talk about that too, by the way. How about Garrett Raboyne staying at Augustana? He was a name that was thrown around, and Josh Morton posted a nice tweet out there that said, coach for now and years to come. So that's great news for people in the town I'm currently in right now in Sioux Falls.
Morty engagement farming. You got to love that. We should also point out too, Felix Trudeau, the Sacred Heart senior, undrafted free agent, gets an NHL deal with St. Louis, and a really good developmental story for Sacred Heart. Yeah,
absolutely. He transferred to Sacred Heart and just became a prolific goal scorer. Great for Felix Trudeau to find a spot for him to have success. And he was certainly one of the top goal scorers in the country this year. And it's great for Atlantic hockey as a whole to have one of its star players sign an NHL deal. So that's big for Felix Trudeau.
40 goals the last 2 seasons for Felix Trudeau, 25 in 39 games as a senior. Okay, let's talk tournament. We know the bracket, we know the field. What did we learn last weekend?
Well, I think we learned the committee just went basically straight bracket and seating integrity. They They did not flip a lot of seeds. And that is kind of the way the committee has gone the last 3 years. So I will give the committee a lot of credit. They kept themselves out of controversy. They decided, you know what, we're not going to, well, this seed will flip, but not this one. And then you have coaches that say, hey, why did you give us this matchup? You know what? No one can say anything. They went straight with the seeds. And if you don't like where they put you, it's your own doing, because that was your seed. I get that not a lot of the matchups are regionalized. Some are not, but that is part of the system. And that we're currently playing this tournament under. But hey, they went straight seeding, and I credit the committee for doing so.
All right, let's go through each region. We will start, probably makes sense to start with the Thursday regionals first. That's Worcester and Sioux Falls. So in Worcester, Michigan State, UConn, Dartmouth versus Wisconsin. Let's start with the Michigan State UConn matchup. That'll kick us off 1:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Michigan State from bell to bell has been really good this year. We've seen UConn play some really high-end hockey, led by the likes of Joey Muldowney. What are you taking away from this matchup?
Yeah, Michigan State's been at the top of the country all year long, and has been they're a really complete team. I think they've got everything you want in a team that's going to challenge for a national title. They've got some of the young, super high-end NHL skill. They've got the older players that you need in this day and age. The Matt Basgulls, the Daniel Russells, some of those just great college hockey players. On the back end, they've got a good mix of they've got a good mix of players who are skill and grit as well. And then at the very back end, they've got, arguably the best goaltender in the country. So I think this has every element you want in a team. And also, that's not an easy first round matchup. UConn's playing well right now. Ty Muslik's playing well in that. If he keeps playing the way he has, I'm like, oh, we've got another Callum Tongue up and coming here for UConn. And you mentioned it. It'll be interesting with one thing that happens with the NCAA tournament is these TV timeouts with ESPN broadcasting are extra long, and they can throw that Tattle and Muldowney line out there maybe a little bit more. And some of these teams that are really good four-line teams, it's easier to shorten your bench. And so maybe that takes away a little bit of Michigan State's advantage with the Spartans' depth. But I have a feeling we're going to see Tattle and Muldowney out there quite a bit.
No active player in college hockey has more goals the last 2 seasons than Joey Muldowney, which might surprise a lot of people outside of Hockey East. He's a player to watch in this tournament for sure. The other matchup, Dartmouth versus Wisconsin, the 2 and 3 seeds on Thursday. Dartmouth, school record 23 wins. They won their conference championship for the first time ever. Wisconsin kind of stumbling into the tournament a little bit. They're the only team in the field sub 500 since Christmas. They've reached that 21 win mark 2 of the 3 years under Mike Hastings, which you pointed out they hadn't done in the previous 9 years before he arrived. Break down this matchup for us.
Well, we're going to find out if momentum is a thing here.
Yep.
If it is, then Dartmouth, big advantage. The Big Green played really well at the ECAC tournament. Wisconsin comes in after not only an up and down second half, but just a really difficult loss going into the tournament to Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. Just getting blown out. Very atypical loss. I still like this Wisconsin team and how they're built. I think they have a lot of elements you want. The Badgers need their goaltending to hold up. That's one area where it's been up and down this year. Off to a great start early, not so great in the second half. They need their goaltending to hold up. On the other side, I think what fans are going to notice is when Hayden Stavrov has the puck on his stick and he shoots, it's different. I think I texted you, we were watching that game, and I was like, oh my goodness, like when he gets a shot, that's You can see why he has 29 goals.
You texted, he hit the post, I think, when you texted
Yes.
me, and that clang rang loud.
Yeah, he's got 29 goals this year. The only guys in college hockey with more goals than him in like the last 10 years, it's like a list of like 8 guys. I wish I had it handy right now. But like a bunch of them were Hobie winners. It was Fantilli when he won the Hobie. Cole Caulfield when he won the Hobie. Ryan Leonard was in there. Macklin Celebrini when he won the Hobie. There are Jason Poland. So he's in really rare company, and he even plays in for an Ivy that's a couple games under what other schools have played. So impressive season. I think everyone's going to be introduced to Hayden Stavrov, and there's so much more than that too, though. Like the Cleves brothers are both really good.
Yeah, CJ Foley. Yeah,
CJ Foley's
Crotto's playing very well.
He is. That's a big key if they can get him on this game. CJ Foley feels like he's played college hockey for 150 years. I'm not even sure he's a senior, but he's one of those guys who's just kind of been pretty dominant since he started.
I've got your list here, your Hayden Stavrov list. 9 different players with more goals in the last 10 years, and all 9 have reached the NHL. Cutter Gauthier, Macklin Celebrini, Zach Aston Reese, Ryan Leonard, Adam Fantilli, Adam Gaudette, Cole Caulfield, Ryan Leonard again, and Jason Poland. Really heady company for Hayden Stavrov. Let's turn to your regional, the Sioux Falls regional. North Dakota is the 1 seed. They'll face Merrimack Thursday night. Providence is the 2 seed. They'll face Quinnipiac Thursday early evening, 5 p.m. Eastern. So let's break down that matchup first. The Providence Quinnipiac, which I think is one of the more compelling matchups in the entire field. Both teams have shown that their top end game this year is probably as good as any in the country.
Yeah. I think first of all, what jumps out to me in this regional, number one, you've got 3 conference champions in the same regional.
Yep.
And these are teams that, and I'm talking regular season title winners. So over the long haul, North Dakota was the best team in the NCHC. Providence was the best team in Hockey East. Quinnipiac was the best team in the ECAC. Second thing is I texted you and said, you looked up a stat for me. Who has the most wins in college hockey since December 10th or 11th? And you gave me a list of about 6 or 7 teams. 3 of them are in this regional that popped up. So these are some teams that have been really good over the last 3 months. And Providence,
97 wins in this regional. That's the most of any of the 4.
Wow. Providence and Quinnipiac. I think the 2 teams that have excelled with younger defensive cores than we're used to seeing teams excel with.
Yeah.
So credit to both squads. I think Quinnipiac's a little different than they've been built the last few years. Like I feel like the past few years they've had a lot of like the 4th and 5th year seniors on the back end who are old and they really shut it down. This is more of a high flying Quinnipiac team. You know, they've got some guys that can really score. They're dynamic offensively. They're not as old on the back end, but they can really put up the offense. Elliot Gronwald, every time I look at their statistics, that plus minus just jumps out at me. He is a plus 38. Nobody on the team is better than plus 21, I think. So he is like on another planet with everyone else on the team. Providence, I think we've talked a lot about Jack Parsons and the way he jumped in when Philip Svedback got hurt this year and went on that, what was a 9-game winning streak when he first came in for Svedback. Now he's the starter. But Providence also has some pretty dynamic players up front. And it's not just Roger McQueen, the number 10 overall pick. You've got John Mustard who can absolutely fly, and he's a great skater. You look at their centers, and that's what really, when I'm like, why is Providence so good this year? I just look up the middle, and I'm like, wow, that is a 4 really, really good centermen. It starts with Roger McQueen. Graham Gamache is their second-line center. Very good player. Hudson Malinowski. What did he lead the team in scoring last year? if he was 1 point away, I think, from leading the team. He's your third line center. And then their fourth line center is Alexei Kivioya. And he's going to get an NHL contract potentially at the end of this tournament. So, like, that is a loaded 4 centers. It should be a great matchup.
Providence's youth has been well documented by us in this show. 19 underclassmen. That's the most of any team in the tournament. They have 1 point from a senior all season, and it's Philip Svedback, their injured goaltender, which I love that stat. That's incredible. They'll have to find a way to solve Quinnipiac defensively. They're giving up the fewest shots per game in the country, so keep an eye on that throughout the game as well. The other matchup, the number 1 seed, North Dakota against Merrimack. You mentioned the 3 regular season champions in this tournament. And oh, by the way, the 4th team is Merrimack, which won Hockey East's tournament last weekend.
Yeah. Max Lundgren, just an incredible performance. I mean, he's been really good all year. Like, this was not like out of nowhere. He's been a guy NHL scouts have been talking about for months. He's big. He can move. Yeah, he's a really impressive goaltender. I believe he's 6'5", and he was just great, and he has been a difference maker for Merrimack. But to me, they're not just Max Lundgren. You look at those top 2 lines that they put out, and they're quite dynamic. They're fun to watch. They've got Parker Lalonde centering Kalen Fitzpatrick and Caden Cranston. And then you've got Justin Gill, who played in the American Hockey League last year. He was one of those professional guys that ended up in college hockey. He centers Trevor Hoskin, who's one of the very highly skilled players in this country, a 4th round draft pick of Calgary. And then Nick Pierre, he's a little smaller player, but super skilled. So that they have a ton of skill on their top 2 lines. It's reflected in the power play. That's been 30% since mid-December. If there's a way that North Dakota has to try to beat Merrimack, it's by forcing the defense into mistakes. And UConn was able to do that with some of their top forwards, but they were not able to turn those into goals because
they had 50 shots on goal.
Yep. And not only that, Merrimack blocks shots with the best of them. They're number 2 in the nation this year in shot blocks. So their D will block a lot of shots. Their goaltender will save a lot of pucks. And and as I said, I asked you to look up that statistic. No team has won more games in the country since December 11th than Merrimack.
Yep.
It's not like they got hot like 2 weeks ago. This team has been really good since mid-December, and the reason why their record is so low is because they had a really tough first 2 months. They were not good the first 2 months, but they have been good for 3 months now. And 16-5-2, I think it is, since that time. And so it's a very good team that's getting great goaltending.
On the North Dakota side, Ollie Josephson, the freshman, is not, I would assume, a household name around the country in college hockey circles, but he is the type of player you win playoff games with, and he is unavailable for North Dakota. How will that impact things?
Yeah, he's that 3rd-line defensive center that you want matching up against good players because he's just hard and a playoff-style player. I am assuming that it is going to be Jack Kernan that gets moved up the lineup, and everyone has to get bumped up a little bit. So that is a loss for North Dakota. If the Fighting Hawks make it out of the regional, I do think we would see him in Las Vegas. But that is a difficult loss for the Fighting Hawks, that an injury that occurred in the NCHC semifinals against Minnesota Duluth. So, not expecting him to play this weekend.
Should point out, too, before we move on to the next regional, that this matchup has a pair of players playing against their former teams.
Yep. Michael Emerson spent a semester at North Dakota. He was not playing a whole lot, ended up going back to Chicago in the USHL. then he's been at Merrimack. This is his second year with the Warriors. And then North Dakota has Tyler Young. He spent the last 3 years at Merrimack, and he transferred to North Dakota this year. So if you want stories on those guys, GrandForksHerald.com/UND hockey. I wrote a story on Tyler Young this week, and one of my coworkers is writing a story today on Michael Emerson, and by the time you're listening to this, should be on our websites.
Let's talk about the Albany Regional that gets underway Friday, featuring Michigan against Bentley, Minnesota Duluth against Penn State. If you like individual skill, this region is as good as any. 4 of the nation's top 5 scorers in this one. Let's start with number 1 overall seed Michigan against number 4 Bentley.
Yeah, this regional has 2 very contrasting styles between the opponents. So Michigan obviously has had a wonderful season, number 1 overall seed, really explosive offensively, and they have a lot of guys that can score. Bentley under Andy Jones has been a really good defensive hockey team. And if you remember last year's NCAA tournament, Bentley gave Boston College everything it could handle.
Yep.
And BC scored late to win that. And I think we're looking at the same type of thing. If Michigan can build a lead early, Michigan's going to be fine. The longer this game goes, look out, because Bentley can defend. They play really hard. They defend well. This is a very different team than last year's too, by the way. Like, a lot of their players left, and credit to Andy Jones and the staff there. They've been able to come back with a good team, and they do have one player that really jumps out, and that's Jake Black. He can score. He's a big time player, and I think that's going to be the name that fans, get to know at that regional. Michigan has a lot of guys that can put up offense, and TJ Hughes has probably been the leader there. Michael Hage has had a wonderful season, and he's probably ready for the NHL.
9 players, 10 goals or more.
Yeah, so they're pretty explosive. So I know everyone's looking at this matchup saying Michigan's going to cruise, whatever. I would say, yes, Michigan is the big favorite, but Bentley can play a style of game that can get teams worried. And not only that, Bentley started the season by really challenging itself in non-conference play. They played at CC, at Denver, at UMass. So they jumped into it and were like, kind of set the tone, playing really good teams.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see if they can work their magic and keep scores down, because that's Bentley's guide to success.
Regardless of what happens in this regional or this tournament, Michigan will have gone the whole season without back-to-back losses, which is pretty incredible. You mentioned Jake Black. I also suggest viewers tuning into this game familiarize themselves with Michael Messick. He's a sophomore at Bentley. They're a veteran team. They are the oldest team in the field, but Michael Messick is a sophomore who scored a goal in 9 straight games. And I did some digging yesterday. That's one of the 3 longest goal-scoring streaks in the last 20 years. Michael Messick, 9 in a row. So, okay, the other matchup in that region is Duluth against Penn State. There's contrasting styles in this game as well. We've got the Gavin McKenna storyline. We've got Duluth's outstanding sophomore class. Structure versus skill, if you will. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, it is a fascinating contrast. You meant Penn State can score with anyone in the country. Their offense is just scary good. McKenna's the guy that gets the headlines, the potential number 1 overall pick, but to me, it's that they have so many weapons that just seem to get glossed over because of McKenna being there. Aiden Fink was a Hobie finalist last year.
Probably would have been this year too, if not for injury. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie Serrato is, one of the top centers in this country. Matt DeMarsico, I think he's a guy I would be interested in signing if I'm an NHL front office just because of the way he skates and shoots the puck. He was their best player in the NCAA tournament last year. Remember when they made that run to the Frozen Four? It was DeMarsico that kept scoring. Their offensive firepower is incredible. Luke Misa's had a wonderful second half. He was one of those guys that, first half of the season, the transition to college was a little bit challenging, and he's really come on here in the second half of the year. The problem for Penn State is they also give up a lot of goals. And, I feel like Penn State can win any game it plays because of that offense. I also think if you're giving up 4 or 5 goals a game, you're not going to win 4 in a row. Penn State has got to find a way to bring the goals against down. They cannot keep giving up 4 goals every game. The last time a national champion gave up 3 goals in any point in the entire tournament was 2017.
Wow.
So teams that are winning are giving up 1 or 2 every game. I do feel they can outscore a team at any night. I just don't know if you can do it 4 times in a row. And the other thing, Penn State takes a lot of penalties. Can't do that this weekend.
Don't want to do that. Nope.
Minnesota Duluth's top power play with Max Plant, Zam Plant, Jason Shagabe, Ty Hansen, and Callum Arnott. That unit is scary good. And, the Plant brothers are as good as advertised. That's and they can defend. So if Adam Guyan plays at his best, look out for Minnesota Duluth. They play a very different style than Michigan and Penn State. Minnesota Duluth and Bentley are, more similar in this regional. So fascinating matchup when you have 2 styles that contrast like that.
We'll finish with the Loveland Regional. Lots of draft picks in all of the regionals, none more than Loveland, where there's 34 of them. Number 1 seed and defending champion Western Michigan against CCHA champ Minnesota State. That's Friday afternoon. And number 2, Denver, the host of this regional, against number 3, Cornell, Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Let's start with the Broncos and the Mavericks. Western trying to go back-to-back. First team in college hockey to do so since Minnesota Duluth in 1819. Minnesota State won both banners in the CCHA this year.
First of all, who's going to score goals in this regional?
Right.
So
yeah.
These are teams, we just talked about how teams are winning national titles recently and how they defend. Well, here you go. Western versus Minnesota State. I think everyone forgets that they played first round last year, and what team gave Western Michigan the most trouble in the NCAA tournament? It was Minnesota State. The Mavericks had Western on the ropes in the first round of that tournament last year. That game went to double overtime. As the game went on, Minnesota State got better and better, I felt. Western ends up getting the double overtime goal and then goes and wins the national title. The margins are just crazy in this tournament. That is Minnesota State hit the post with 3 minutes left in that game. And that's the difference between being a first round exit team and a national champion. And both these teams are tough. Hampton Slakinski has been sensational. Western Michigan very impressively has survived losing 2 of its top 4 defensemen to injury this season. They're both out for the year, Univisanen and Cole Krusberg-Rosine. They brought in a guy named Alex Kalbach at semester time from the USHL. I've been really impressed by the way he's been able to jump into the second half of college hockey season and be a contributor for that team. Minnesota State, last year they lost a lot of firepower up front, and a lot was made out of that. Like, oh man, they lost their top 3 lines. This is going to be trouble for the Mavericks. But Minnesota State, they kept their top 4D from last year, and they kept Alex Tracy in net. And this was a team no one scored on last year. Now all of a sudden you got those top 4D back, and they're a year older, and Alex Tracy, they are really tough to score goals against. They play a classic Minnesota State style of hockey, and Luke Strandon has done a great job with this team, and that's a scary first round matchup. I don't know if anyone wanted Minnesota State first round.
No, they've allowed more than 2 goals exactly one time since the start of February. So things are really buttoned down. They've been really, really good on the PK too the last couple of months. So fascinating matchup there. Another really compelling matchup is this Denver versus Cornell. This is the third time they've met in the last 4 tournaments. Denver is the hottest in the country, unbeaten in 13, 9-game winning streak. Cornell on the other side is the only team in the country allowing fewer than 2 goals per game. Something's got to give in this one. How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, again, this has low-scoring game written all over it. You've got Johnny Hicks in net for Denver. He has not lost a game yet. Still,
Johnny good.
He came in because of an injury, and he had not really played a whole lot before late January. He comes in, and Denver is not lost with Johnny Hicks in net. He's smaller goaltender than traditional guys today. What is he, 5'10", 5'11"? He is not big, but has he been just sensational for Denver. And Denver's going against the Cornell team with shocker, Cornell's got a really good goaltender. It feels like that's evergreen there. And the Alexis Cournoyer is the guy this year, a freshman. He came in with a lot of accolades and highly touted, and has been as good, if not better, than expected. So, and the other things that jump out to me about these teams, on the Denver side, it's the decor. You've got Eric Polkamp and Boston Buckberger, who are going to log a lot of minutes. They're as good of a 1-2 punch as anyone. I feel Boston Buckberger gets overlooked because of Polkamp back there. He's one of the best in the country. You know, he actually plays more than Eric Polkamp. His time on ice per game is slightly more than Polkamp. He has a lot of points. He defends really well. Buckberger is a great defenseman who will probably get an NHL contract. And then on the Cornell side, it's the centers. You know, when you can throw out Jonathan Castagna and Ryan Walsh, 2 veteran centers that win an incredible number of draws. If you haven't, Jane McNally from the Cornell student paper did a fantastic story on those 2 this year.
Read her work, people. Read her work every week. It's fantastic.
She's very good. She's very, very good. Also, I guess that's one shout out at the end of the broadcast we could do, but student reporting has been really good.
Tremendous.
As of late, it's been really fun to read. So props to a lot of the student reporters out there. You know, newspapers are struggling a little bit in this day and age, and some of the students have jumped up and really had some sensational reporting this year. So, and Jane McNally is one of them. But yeah, that is going to be a great. I just think who's going to score. All 4 of those teams keep scores low. If you come out of that regional, you are going to be battle tested. That is a big, strong, heavy regional with great goaltending.
And you mentioned Cornell centers, and I'll add too that I think Charlie Major centered their 3rd line last week, and he's got 27 points in 31 games. So much like Providence, really deep down the middle. Yeah,
and that bodes well at tournament time. And so this is out in Loveland, so it's close to Denver, but I think when you look at all the regionals, that one you're like, oh, that is going to be tough hockey. You are going to have to there's going to be some bumps and bruises at the end of that regional. The training staffs on those programs are going to have to do their work probably, especially that Western Minnesota State game. Oh, that's going to be fantastic hockey.
Big boy series. As we look at the bracket as a whole, I haven't seen yet if you've made any predictions publicly. I don't know if you're saving if this is coming in the Grand Forks Herald this week. If it is, we can wait. If not, if you're prepared, go ahead and give us your 4 winners.
So yeah, I'm going to do that tonight.
Okay.
Watch for it. And I've started doing a little bit of the looking here, and I feel like I do this way too often where I kind of have moved the 1 seeds on, and you're like, it never works out that way. I need to put in some 3 seeds, and who are going to be the 4 seeds that make the Frozen Four this year. Like, I really feel there's going to be some chaos. The other thing I always do too, so I'm going to make my picks, And then when I'm done, I take a coin and I flip the coin and see if flipping a coin can do better than me. It has in the past. That just shows you the chaotic nature of this tournament. I have beaten the coin recently, the last few years, so that's good. But this year is one of those years where I'm like, I don't feel good about beating the coin this year. I think this is going to be very much up in the air. Who comes out of these regionals. And so
we talk about this a lot when we're discussing the NPI throughout the year, and you don't have to squint very hard to see a lot of these teams going 2-0 on a given weekend.
For sure. And I just think, I don't know why we for some reason, our minds change when we hit the NCAA tournament. And sometimes I hear these surprises, this 4 seed beat this 1 seed. If a regular season game happened where, a team that's ranked number 15 beat a team that was ranked number 2, we wouldn't bat an eye at it. North Dakota lost to Arizona State in a game this year, and everyone just kind of, whatever, that happens. Arizona State's got Lucius and Shimmick and these explosive players. That happens. Arizona State finished last place. So you're talking these 1 seeds can lose to last place teams that don't make the tournament. And now all of a sudden we get to the tournament, we're surprised they lost to a team ranked in the top 15. Nothing's really an upset anymore. If there's one that we would consider an upset in this tournament, it would be Bentley beating Michigan. But again, we are talking about a team that won its league's regular season title, won the playoff title. All these guys have been to the NCAA tournament, not all of them, but a lot of them have been to the NCAA tournament. And this all started 20 years ago. And the first 4 to beat a 1 was Holy Cross and beating Minnesota. But one thing, remember, that Holy Cross squad made the tournament a year or 2 earlier. A lot of those guys have played in the tournament, similar to Bentley. And since that has happened, I think we've only had 1 year where a 4 did not beat a 1. It is just very common, almost, that we're talking over 90% of years since then, a 4 has beaten a 1. And so, and then as good as these 1s have been this year, it's is it really going to be that surprising if one of these 4s wins? Nah, I don't think so. So
yeah, some good teams are going to lose this weekend, and they're going to lose to good teams. Shout out Tyler McGregor. Shout out Tony Casada. You mentioned you'll be at the you mentioned you'll be at the rink all day today. What are some of the storylines you'll be fleshing out between now and puck drop?
Yeah, I think first of all, just we're seeing who's practicing. I want to make sure everyone's skating there. From the North Dakota Merrimack side, we will be kicking out a story on Michael Emerson. We'll be maybe trying to see why Max Lundgren is such a good goaltender and why he's thrived for Merrimack this year, especially down the stretch. We'll see what Quinnipiac and Providence have to say here. Hopefully we get a decent crowd for that game. They are both traveling over 1,000 miles for this regional in Sioux Falls. But I'm just looking forward to checking out the practices and pressers. And, everyone goes into this tournament with a lot of hope, because if you're here, you've had a really good season. And, you look at some of the teams that aren't here, and it's Boston College with James Hagens and Dean Letourneau, and, Menedian just signed with Dallas.
Signed too, yeah.
And then you look at UMass, and they've got Krabel and Musa and Nestrasil and all these great players. And these are unbelievably talented teams that are not in the tournament. So if you're in, you really had a great season. And, I think we have 16 coaches who probably expect their teams to win 2 games this weekend. And so there will be a lot of optimism at the press conferences across the 4 regionals today and tomorrow, and I think there's good reason for it.
Yeah, even as you get into the 14, 15, 16 seeds, there's no happy to be here's this year.
No. I mean, UConn was right there trying to make the Frozen Four last year. They probably have a bitter taste in their mouth they were soaked, they were a goal away. You've got Minnesota State who's sitting back there watching Western win the national title saying, what happens if we score that overtime goal? Do we? Yeah. Is that ours? Merrimack, as we talked about, one of the hottest teams in the country coming in over the last 3 months. And they say they probably are thinking we've got the best goalie in the tournament. And he played so well in Hockey East. Why wouldn't we make a run? We've got loaded top 2 lines. I just think a lot of these coaches are, they've had a taste of it. The Merrimack seniors, they played in the tournament as freshmen. So a lot of these teams have been here, and I think they'll be hungry to get through to Las Vegas.
I'm hungry too, so we'll leave it there. Schloss, go get some coffee and you get to the rink. Appreciate you carving out some time for this. Folks, we've done our homework. You've done your homework. It's time to enjoy the hockey.